great and wonderful from the outside looking in, you see what they want you to see. Just like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all social media, we see the best moments of people's lives. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. When you guys take a selfie and you post a selfie, about how many times do you take the picture before you post it? Anybody? How many times do you take a selfie? How many? 20. Anybody else?
I barely ever take them.
Okay, you barely ever take them. Okay. Anybody else who's an avid selfie taker, how many selfies do you take before you post it? 10. So we have 20 pictures and 10 pictures. But which one do you post? The best one. Which one do you post? The best one. Right. So if this is what we're admitting that we do, so imagine everyone who is a model or a fitness enthusiast or your mama or a teen or just an amazing woman or young woman. Imagine how many snapshots they're taking of their life and imagine what they're actually showing you. So I'm going to just get started a little bit with my story and my testimony, and then we're going to do a little bit of an activity with you guys probably in the second half. One sunny Tuesday afternoon, this happened about 2 weeks ago, one of my team members, I'm actually the marketing director at Chick-fil-A here in Murfreesboro, currently locally, and one of my team members said to me, I drove by, one of my team members said, "Wow, Miss Michelle, nice truck," gave me a thumbs up. And I looked at him kind of with this funny, weird look on my face, kind of like, huh. And it wasn't that I didn't think that my truck was nice. The look of shock that I had was because that team member, outside looking in again, didn't realize that that car payment darn near killed me. It had been repossessed 3 times, once from a restaurant at a family dinner. He didn't know that agreeing to pay for that car, which the car note was over $800 a month, was far above my means, just for having the facade of having it all together. And that years ago, amid many other poor decisions that I made, after many other very poor decisions that I made, including being engaged to a narcissist, brought me to the depth of depression and literally to my rock bottom. That team member also didn't know that after losing my job that I loved so much, I missed so many truck and house payments that I was almost on the street after being a refuge in my home for 5 adults over the years. He also didn't know that I pretended to be fine, all the while drowning in anxiety and fear. And today we're just going to talk a little bit about our story. So your story is just literally your testimony of how God takes ashes and can turn them into beauty. Not being transparent actually hurts others who are going through what you're going through and actually suffering in silence. So we are literally the help that we are looking for in the world. And this is just a little bit more about my story. So I noticed that Coach Burke talked about being raised by a single mom. I was raised by an amazing single mom. Anybody in here is being raised by an amazing single mom? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I was raised by an amazing single mom. My mom worked 3 jobs. She did hair, she cooked for wealthy families, she cleaned houses, just to put myself and my brothers through school. And we all took extracurricular activities. Now, we took violin, piano, and dance lessons. And yes, my 2 very masculine brothers also took dance lessons. And yes, they did take ballet. But, we won't let them know that I told you guys that. And my mom, I don't ever remember her getting sick. I don't remember ever her taking a day off of work. And even when she was diagnosed with breast cancer, she didn't even tell us until the week of her surgery, because the only reason why she actually told us was because she said she would need a ride home from my brother and she figured that we would wonder where she was for all the hours that she was in surgery. So my mom was definitely a superwoman. She always cooked from scratch. We would wake up in the morning to fresh baked bread pretty much every morning. And she was just pretty much an amazing mama, superwoman, I would say. And my whole life growing up, my dad was around mostly just for holidays and celebrations, but not really involved in my life at all. I had always boasted that my older brother would walk me down the aisle when the time came for me to get married. Because to me, since my dad didn't want to be around, and my brother pretty much was the one who was raising me like a dad, my dad didn't deserve that privilege of walking me down the aisle. And I kind of always said that kind of braggingly, like boasting, oh, he doesn't want to be there for me. Oh, I don't want him around for my stuff either. And it really did bother me because my dad actually did remarry. I have 2 younger sisters, so he remarried, and I have 2 younger sisters, they're not half-sisters, but we have a sisterly relationship now as adults. But I always felt that, I always wondered why my dad chose to move on and marry my stepmom, and I felt like he chose to be a real dad to my sisters and not to me. That was my perception at the time, and I became very bitter towards my dad, and my heart was very hardened towards him. And it wasn't until maybe my mid-20s I was in a relationship with a young man, and he urged me that I needed to heal my relationship with my father. So he felt that in order for us to move forward in our relationship, hopefully moving towards marriage, that I really needed to go back and heal my relationship with my dad. So, urged on by him, I got up enough courage to call my dad, and I talked to him. And now, mind you, my whole time growing up, I never said any negative word, never complained to my dad ever. I always looked forward to whenever he would come into town. If he just took me for ice cream day, or took me to the toy store, whatever little time that he spent with me, I was always so excited about it. So I never expressed to him that I was bitter or hardened towards him at all. And so, urged by my ex, I called and I told him everything that I had been thinking and feeling. How I had been heartbroken, how I felt like he moved on without me. I told him, just imagine pouring out what you've been thinking and feeling rejected by your father for 20-something years. So I told him all of that on a phone call. And his response on the phone was absolute, dead, eerie silence. So my heart broke a little bit more right then. And my heart just felt like it just sunk to my heels. I was crushed, and I became even more just hardened and bitter. I think my dad just wasn't prepared for that conversation, and he wasn't at the time prepared to have an adult conversation with his little girl, who was always a little girl to him. But now I had, confronted him with the truth of how I felt as an adult, and he just wasn't prepared to talk about it. So I moved on and left it at that, till one day I was sitting in small group Bible study in my church in Atlanta in the balcony, and there was a speaker named Pastor Hebel, and he and his wife have an amazing ministry. It's called Forgiving Forward. And so Pastor Hebel talks about forgiving forward. Basically, he defines the crux of the message of the cross is forgiveness. So there's different aspects to the cross of grace and salvation, but the core crux of the cross is forgiveness. So he and his wife have an amazing ministry, and they focus on forgiving unforgivable hurts. So he deals with couples who have dealt with adultery. He deals with, molestation, rape, just all types of the most harsh things in your life that you would say, well, surely this I don't need to forgive because they deserve, for me to hate them. So that's sort of the crux of their ministry. And so we were sectioned off in small groups, and I was paired up with a young lady, and as we were going through the Bible study in the balcony, I just felt very convicted. I felt like just the Holy Spirit was just convicting me. And it was almost like I could hear a clear voice saying, how can I forgive my father for what he's done? And then I was thinking, and then the convicting voice sort of said, how can you, Lachelle, accept forgiveness of your sins when you're not willing to afford that forgiveness to your dad? So the young lady that I was paired up with, she was really having a really tough time with the material, and she said, Lachelle, you just don't understand. Why should I forgive my dad? You have no idea the horrible things that he's done to me and my brothers and sisters. And so just from her tone, I could just imagine there was some real trauma and some real pain there. And just that convicting voice was just so strong for me. And we just sort of talked through it, and we both just sort of had a kind of a moment of understanding of each other's just story at that moment. And it was at that moment that I realized that I knew that I needed to forgive my dad just for not being there. And even if he wasn't ready to talk, it was time for me to forgive him and release him. So, and I'd love to tell you that I called him that night, and he said, oh, you're amazing, I love you too, so much. And we became, besties that next day, but that didn't happen. It was a long process over years. But I mean, the first initial conversations took weeks and months. And then over a course of 8 years, we are now, if you see me and my dad in the same room, I mean, we are arm in arm. You wouldn't even believe that my dad didn't raise me. Dr. Hebel and Pastor Hebel and his wife actually featured a story about my dad and I's relationship and reconciliation in one of their Father's Day newsletters. So, after hearing about this, my mission director, one of my mentors at the church, after hearing about our story and the Forgiving Forward, she asked me if I would kind of get up in front of the church and just on Sunday sort of give a little testimonial about the class and the work that we did and how that affected us, and just ask other people to take the class as well. So I said, sure, no problem, no big deal. So I got ready that Sunday, had on a cute dress, had my heels on, hair was looking good, I was just going to get up there and give my little 2-minute spiel about this class and keep it moving. Well, as I was waiting to get to the podium in front of about 3,000 people in my church, the Holy Spirit, once again, convicted me, and it was almost in a clear voice that I heard the words, tell them. And I struggled to just, it felt almost like choking words, as I started talking. I had planned out exactly, sheet of paper, exactly what I was going to say. And as I was trying to just get the words out, it was almost like choking, like I couldn't get the words out. And so suddenly the room cleared. There was almost no one in the room that I could see. And it was just me, and I just could see white, kind of the lights. And I choked out at the story. I gave a testimony of the fact that my stepfather had actually molested me from the ages of 12 to 15. So after dance practice, because I did ballet since 4, after dance practice, my legs and back would always be super sore. And how my stepfather started out is he would offer to massage my legs, offer to massage my back, and it was always at a time where, of course, my mom was working 3 jobs, my mom was not around, my brothers had already long since moved out of the house by then, so we were always at home alone by ourselves. He would offer to massage my legs and back. The massaging would get to more type of groping. There were times, and most times I would try to make an excuse and go to the bathroom, or if I couldn't sort of get my thoughts together to find an excuse to get away, I remember just kind of seeing myself from kind of up high in sort of in the ceiling and sort of looking down at what was happening as if I'm watching it happen to someone else. It's not actually happening to me. and a lot of other women that I've talked to that have been molested or raped as well, that's sort of a victim experience. It's your subconscious or your brain's defense mechanism so that you don't have to face the reality that this is actually happening to you. So this inappropriate groping, I would sort of freeze and blank out, and as I was giving that testimony, as the words kind of escaped out of my mouth, I really just couldn't believe that I had said that. This was not my plan. I was going up there to talk about a class, and that was that. Where did that even come from? And so, again, another convicting voice, and again, it reminded me that the message of the cross is forgiveness. But surely this was something that shouldn't be forgiven, right? I mean, that's pretty bad. So I just felt like I was right to have a grudge, not to forgive. But I think the overarching theme that I've always seen in my life is that the cross always gives us a reason for us to get forgiveness and for us to be able to forgive as well. So over the next week after that, woman after woman after woman, and even a man in his late 50s came up to me in church and shared that either thank you for sharing my story, or they experienced the same thing back in the day when they were children. It's just something that we don't talk about. And there's a fear of sharing if you've been molested or raped or any type of violence like that towards you. There's a fear that if you speak up, you're going to be blamed. You did something wrong, or that you won't be believed, or that even if you are believed, that nothing will happen, and in some way that's your fault, and it absolutely is not your fault. I was speaking with the director of the sexual abuse and sexual violence and domestic abuse program here locally in Murfreesboro yesterday at the ribbon cutting, and she was letting me know some alarming statistics that 1 in 5 women the age of 18 and under have been in some way violated. But it's 1 in 5. So if there's 60 of us in here, at least 12 within this room have been affected in some way by sexual abuse or violence. And I just want you to know that I am still standing, and if I can be, you can too. I've given you guys some packets so that we can sort of go through sort of what are some of the signs of sort of abusive narcissistic behavior. But before we get to the packet, I'm just going to fast forward a little bit here. So I actually ended up taking care of my mom, who has advancing Alzheimer's. And she moved down with me to Atlanta. So we had a house full. I had my mom, take care of my mom who had Alzheimer's. I had 2 young women that lived with me, and it was just tons and tons of pressure. I always felt like I should just always have it all together. I should never say that I need help, because my mom never needed help. She took care of us all by herself. And I felt like I should just do the same thing. So taking care of my mom, taking care of two young women in my home, and I just was under so much pressure, but I could never say that I needed help. I could never say that it was too much, because that's what I thought that a good godly woman did. You just kept doing for others, you kept putting yourself last, and you kept putting others first always. That's what I had been modeled for me, and that's what I thought was the thing to do. So even though taking care of my mom was too much, and taking care of 2 other women was too much, I did not ever say that I needed help. I would just always help, always. And so at that time, I had my home in Atlanta, and enter a man who I had been friends with for over 12 years, really, and he expressed his interest in dating me and helping with my mom. Finally, help was here, I thought. Okay, I was just so tired and exhausted, and time went on, and his business was in trouble, and he needed help with investing, so I pulled money out of my savings. I basically emptied out my 401k, giving it no thought, because again, I was just so focused on, helping my mom. And over the next few months, we went quickly from dating to being engaged. And then until one night, my mom, we came home the night that we were engaged, and my mom had a really bad episode with her memory, and she had literally packed up all of her clothes and all of her belongings from her room upstairs, and one by one in the evening had taken all of her items downstairs to the front door. And when I came home, she was so disoriented with her memory that she said she needed to go home, and she was adamant about just going home. So this was just a real dark point for me, and I realized at that point that I could no longer really care for my mom, and then it was just too much, really, at that time. So this man that I was engaged to, just with things with my mom and just things with myself, he just sort of went from a knight in shining armor to just a very negative person who always just found complaints about me in some way. He started off great and amazing, and then within very short amount of time, 2 or 3 months, it's, one moment I was helping him on a call. This is one thing that just stands out to me so much in my mind, which was just so scary. I was standing on the phone, I was standing in the closet and on the phone with a customer service person, and he was so upset with me. Okay, so where was I? Okay, so at that point we were, I was in the closet and I was on the phone with a person, and he got really upset that I asked too many questions to the person, and so he snatched the phone out of my hand, went downstairs, got a toolbox, got a hammer, and came upstairs and smashed the phone. And that was just super scary for me, so I just ran into a guest room, and from that moment it just really went down, seriously just went downhill from there. So after that kind of all fell apart, I sought refuge in a good friend of mine, and she asked me what was I going to do, and at that point I said to her through tears, call my dad. So after all that, I called my dad, and he basically came to rescue. After all of that, all of my years of not having a relationship with my dad, because I had actually used the ministry to kind of heal the relationship with my dad and I had forgiven him, I was able to then, as an adult, make the call to him, a distress call to him, and he helped me out with a very, very bad situation. At that point, I was no longer engaged. Everything felt like it was falling apart. My debt was insurmountable. And then I ended up having to file bankruptcy. Like I mentioned earlier on, my truck was repossessed. And me, the wonderful superwoman, I had nothing. No one, a failed engagement, spiritually, financially, and emotionally bankrupt. I sat in the parking lot in front of Marshall's on Cobb Parkway in Marietta, Georgia, and felt physical waves of anxiety crashing over me. I felt like it was a physical hand choking me. I was so overwhelmed. Honestly, I just felt what was the purpose of going on another day. But God. And I could almost hear just a voice again saying, set up. So that year, it was Christmas of that year was probably the saddest, loneliest Christmas I heard Coach Burt talk about just being depressed after a really hard breakup. It was just so sad and lonely, and I had no money to go home. I was in this big, huge house all by myself now, and a friend called to tell me Merry Christmas, like he did usually around that time, and he gave me the advice of just take each moment as it comes, and the more time that I put the distance between the horrible thing that happened and now is the easier that I will get. Just put distance and time between the thing. So, and I decided at that moment I literally was just not well enough to go insane. So if I woke up in a really bad, depressed mood, I would actually just count down the hours till I could get back to sleep and promise myself that the next day I would just have a much better attitude the next day. Day by day I did this. There was a friend of mine that actually asked if he could train me in the gym, and honestly I just said yes mainly because I just didn't want to sit at home and be depressed anymore. I was just in such a depressed, rock bottom state. And over this time, I had found out that my fiance at that time had actually married and had and was having a child with one of the young women that lived in my home. So it was just really not a good time. But all of this, I think, so days and weeks went by, and whenever I faced a challenge of a weight in the gym that I just could not lift, I just pushed myself with all of the anger and the fear. I would just push with all of the sadness to push myself out of that moment. I would use the hard things in my life to just kind of keep pushing myself forward. And then people started to notice a change in me and started wondering, why all of a sudden a change and why all of a sudden randomly are you lifting weights and doing all this. And when people would ask, I would just tell them. So my entire path in my life, really, and even the most horrible, very hard things, very painful things that actually just been part of my healing and my coming closer to Christ. My dad and I have such a close, wonderful relationship now. When I was married, he proudly walked me down the aisle, which was really just a wonderful moment for me because I never thought that was something that I even wanted, let alone would really enjoy. And again, I just felt convicted just some years ago through that ministry for Giving Forward to do that hard work with my dad to build that relationship. So, really, the smile and sort of the beauty that you see in me now is just really just the thankfulness that I have for my healing and just really coming closer to Christ. And I asked all of my mentees and friends going through a really tough time to just please take your unforgivable hurts in your life to the cross, and I ask that you, if you're able to forgive those who have hurt you, because really, forgiveness is really for you, and it's empowering you to move on and have a great and wonderful life. And so that's pretty much kind of the synopsis of my story. And if you guys want to look at your pamphlets that I passed out to you, we'll kind of walk through that a little bit. The Find Your Rainbow pamphlets that you guys have. Okay, so I just want to share with you a couple of things on the first page that are just some of the things that I thought would be a good takeaway for just some controlling, manipulative behavior. And if you see any of these type of behaviors that, they're just not good, not healthy for you to be around, people like that. So a couple of the controlling, manipulative behaviors. The person might make a mistake, but somehow they turn it around to it being your fault, and they get angry because of that. And sometimes you may find yourself, trying to figure out, feel unsure of yourself, what to do or, how to stop them from being angry. You become sort of a little fearful of that in some way. They may place the blame of their shortcomings on you and project their own disappointment themselves onto you as well. They have problems with you doing things that make you feel good about yourself, i.e. going to the gym or church or spending time with friends and family. And they may insult you, your personal appearance or your intelligence. You're suddenly to this or to that when initially you were, the greatest thing. And what they once loved about you, they might complain constantly about. They take major issue with positive people, leadership, role models. It might be a parent or older brother that's considered a mentor or role model to you. And basically what they're doing is they're trying to isolate you from the good people that can sniff out their bad behavior. So they want to isolate you away from friends and family that can encourage you and love you. And so if you see any of these signs, and definitely multiple of them, in any of the relationships or friendships that you guys might have, definitely know that those are very toxic behaviors, and definitely behaviors that you will definitely want to stay away from. Love does not belittle you or hurt you or insult you. That is not what love does. And there's some information lines on the bottom of that page. And so I noticed that when I felt what kind of got to my rock bottom part, I noticed that what happens is I start just kind of repeating negative things, my failures to myself. The enemy just will repeat to you your failures, your shortcomings, and that's just what's kind of replaying in your mind. And it was just helpful for me to remind myself. That's why I have to constantly remind myself of who God says I am to get myself out of that rock bottom state. And I just want to share with you one or two scriptures. Just Romans 8:38 says, "For I am persuaded that neither death nor life nor angels nor principalities nor powers, nor things present nor things to come, nor height nor depth, nor any other created thing shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Jesus Christ our Lord." So that basically tells me that even no matter what happened to me in my past, no matter how dark that is, there's nothing that can snatch me out of God's hand. There's nothing from my childhood or from my adulthood that can be that bad that can, snatch me out of God's hand. And on that next page, if y'all want to flip, I'm running out of time, but on that next page, there's just a list of what God's voice does and what the enemy's voice does. So God's voice stills you, while the enemy's voice rushes you. God's voice leads you, while the enemy pushes you. God's voice reassures you, while the enemy frightens you. And so that's just something that I like to just sort of kind of keep. I have that saved on my phone, and I look at it every once in a while when I'm feeling, start thinking negative things about myself. I know that if I have thoughts that are negative or that are rushing me or making me feel condemned or bad or just down on myself, I know that that's not the voice of God. The voice of God reassures and the voice of God loves us, and He's only going to want the best things for us. And so the next thing, and I'll let you guys do this on your own. The next thing is writing an I am statement. So I am is speaking the future as it is now. So my I am statement is I am a loving, wonderful, nurturing wife and mother of 5. I am being self-employed and I travel the world at will. Now, do I do that currently? No. Do I currently have 5 children? No. But that's my future state of where I would like to be. So if you guys want to take a moment, you can do it a little later, write your I am statement and make it as big as you can possibly think. I am, what do you want to do in the future? Where would you like to go? If you're a world traveler or business owner, what do you want? And then the next sheet is your self-care worksheet. And those would just be things that when you feel down on yourself, what are some things that you can do to make yourself feel amazing? Anybody, just shout it out. Anything that makes you feel amazing. What makes you feel really good? Being with the Lord makes her feel amazing. What makes you feel great? Working out? Fist bump on that one, sister. What makes other people feel really good? Reading. Great. Anybody else? Music. Wonderful. I love that. So those are all things to just write down things that make you feel amazing. And on that sheet you can keep that, and then when you feel down or bad, do one of those things on your sheet. Listen to music. Get with the Lord. Work out. And then the last part is just so super critical, and it's the crux of really my whole story, guys, is that gratitude. The last sheet is your gratitude worksheet. Now, have I had really hard things and challenging things to deal with my life? Absolutely. Has my life been perfect? No. There have been very hard times and very dark times where I felt like God had forgotten me. But on this gratitude worksheet, you can write down things that you're grateful for. And even if you've lived through really hard times and you're going through a hard time right now, there's something right now that we can be grateful for in this moment. So if you guys just want to write down just a couple things, let's just take a moment, just 10 seconds right now, and just write down 2 of your top favorite things that you're super grateful for. I mean, if it's just like waking up this morning, So, and I'll give you just a second to write that down. And just some of the things that I'm grateful for. I woke up this morning in a warm bed. I woke up, I have family and friends that love me. I have family and friends in the back of the room here to support me today. I have this wonderful opportunity to share my story with all of you beautiful young ladies. I'm so grateful for the time that you give me this morning to share with you. So, that's my time, guys. I think I've actually gone over time, but thank you so much for just taking the time to listen to me. And I just want to tell you that each one of you are amazing. And I just thank you so much for your time.